This next panel is the Collaborative Approaches panel. So coming on up, we're going to hear from Benoit and Tracy Williams, and they'll walk us through the Yellowknife Food Charter and how it supports those working towards a just and sustainable food system. That'll be coming on up. Also, we're going to be hearing from the Northern Manitoba Food, Community and Culture Collaborative from Julie Prince, Nicole Lammy, and Alexandra Moody. We'll be hearing from them and some of their work as well too. But our first speaker on the Collaborative Approaches panel, we're going to go to Mona Duale, our first speaker, who's the Territorial Food Security Coordinator with the government of Nunavut. The Nunavut government is one of the partners of the Nunavut Food Security Coalition. The Nunavut Food Security Coalition is intended to raise awareness about food insecurity, undertake research to support new initiatives, and advocate for changes to policies to ultimately make food more affordable and accessible to vulnerable Nunavut. Sorry. All right. So we're happy to have Mona here to share a little bit about herself and her work and their initiatives on our neighbor to the east. So the Anti-Poverty Roundtable virtual tables is all yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so glad to be participating. The conversations are all very interesting and very relatable to the situation here in Nunavut. So just to introduce myself, my name is Mona Duale. I'm the Territorial Food Security Coordinator for the Government of Nunavut Department of Family Services. So we hold one of the food security files here in the Poverty Reduction Division. As part of the work that we do, the Department of Family Services co-chairs the Nunavut Food Security Coalition, as you mentioned. And the coalition is a collaborative group to bring together the government, non-government, Inuit organizations, the private sector, HTOs, hunters and trapper organizations, food banks, grocery retailers, airlines, basically everyone who's involved in getting food to Nunavut and what impacts ultimately the high rates of food insecurity in the territory. So the coalition was actually developed as a working group under the Poverty Reduction Roundtable back in 2012. And the roundtable gathers once a year, every year. This year, obviously, that did not take place due to COVID, but the roundtable is basically the forum for what the coalition does, bringing together all those organizations to develop a shared approach to reducing poverty in the territory. And so in 2012, they developed what's called the Makimanik Plan, which is a shared approach to poverty reduction, which I can share in the links after this call. So that's sort of the framework of how we approach, specifically in my role and just as a territory of policies and frameworks through the lens of this shared approach, this Makimanik Plan that was developed with community consultations through the roundtables over the years, with consulting elders, consulting different community organizations. And this this framework was developed through that. Some of the other work that we do in the coalition, so we hold an annual budget as well for food security initiatives across the territory. It isn't very significant as far as comparatively as far as funding goes. There's definitely room to grow, but so annually there is a call for proposals for those community initiatives. This year we funded 13 different food organizations through the coalition across the territory, and I heard conversations over this call about how these community organizations, these food organizations need sustainable funding for the long term. And this is an issue that we encounter as well, where the food programming, that happens from year to year is sort of on an ad hoc basis because there isn't that core funding and infrastructure required and limited capacity in the communities to keep these food programs going. So that's part of the work that we do in the coalition, is to not only advocate for additional funding at the federal level, but also, and I heard the conversation about the federal applications as well, and all the limitations and barriers there are for Nunavut and for rural communities as well to be accessing these funding opportunities. And so part of the work we do as well is conveying what the realities are, that, like even something as simple as what bandwidth. Myself today, I'm calling in with my phone using my LTE, so we don't even have the government access to extensive bandwidth to be able to connect on a Zoom call the entire day. So just sharing these realities with federal organizations when we're at those tables, and just making the whole criteria a bit more inclusive. Just an example, there was a federal application just last year that we were working on with one of the communities for core funding for a food for a soup kitchen, and the criteria for the application as a whole just didn't really take into account the fact that there isn't much infrastructure already, that core funding is very hard to come by. There are limited, people in the community that can dedicate their time, because oftentimes it's volunteer based. Just sort of the core foundational realities that exist in Nunavut, and just sort of conveying that at those tables. In addition, and that sort of brings me to my point about the advocacy. A big part of the work that we do is advocacy at both at the federal level and at the provincial level as well, but amplifying the voices of what we're hearing from the communities about what they want, what programming they want, rather than it being funding opportunities that have very limited criteria that they need to meet. Otherwise, programming, otherwise they're not eligible. And so, in my role, I'm constantly advocating for representation on these advisory committees that determine what the criteria and what these funding opportunities look like. And in addition to that, advocating for communities to have governance over what food security looks to them, and not merely acting as a liaison, but connecting the two. And I heard someone mentioned earlier with donating foods to the territories, and if it often being sort of what's remaining, and the surplus food rescue program pops up in my head, because that's something that rolled out more recently. And the challenges that we faced with that was not just the high cost of shipping foods to Nunavut, but also the fact that it's not sustainable to merely donate food, and that doesn't really put much of a dent into the very complex issue that is food insecurity. And again, having communities engage in the process of how these programs are developed, as opposed to the program developing and then they being the recipients of it, having no say in the actual structure of the program itself. So that's part of the advocacy work that we do. As well, we're currently working on revising a action plan, which sort of goes hand in hand with the Machiumanic plan. And the action plan is, more broadly speaking, a shared approach for and framework for food security across Nunavut. And again, this involves community consultations, face-to-face meetings and gatherings that collectively contribute to what that would look like, and what a food secure Nunavut would look like to the community. So that's something that's underway right now. A big part, Mona, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, we're running in close to time here, so I'm just gonna. Can you finish up your final thought there?
For sure. Yes. Sorry. And I guess I should just maybe I can just end by saying that as you mentioned earlier, and as you mentioned in the introduction, that the function of the coalition is really to bring together all of those organizations that do work towards reducing food insecurity across the territory, and that no one department, no one organization can do it on their own. So in order to do that, we really do need to have a shared approach and a collaborative approach to reducing food insecurity that is transparent and yeah, that's I guess I'll leave it there before I continue on and on.
Well, I appreciate your time. I know it's close to quitting time over there in Nunavut, so I appreciate you hanging out and sharing about your work and the importance of the collaboration aspect to all this, and how important that is. And that's a good point, that not just one entity can do it all alone. So with that, we'll move on to our next presentation from the Northern Manitoba Food, Community and Culture Collaborative. The collaborative is an innovative partnership of Northern community people, advisors, funders, and organizers. The partners work together to foster healthier, stronger communities in Northern Manitoba through improved access to healthy foods and the development of resilient local economies. I think we got a taste of it in one of the earlier videos as well too. But with us, we have, I guess I'll just let you do a quick little introduction of yourselves. So we'll get going here. I don't know who'd want to go first. We'll start with Julie. Yes, Julie?
Sure, I'll say a quick hello. My name's Julie Price, and I'm just here supporting my newer teammates, Nicole Lammy and Alexandria Moody, to tell a bit of the story about our collaborative. I'll turn over to Nicole.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Lammy, and I'm an Indigenous woman from the city of Winnipeg. I'm a member of the Ochi-Chaco-Sipi First Nation, which is Green River, Manitoba, and have Métis ancestry from St. Laurent, Manitoba. I'm happy to be here with all of you and share a bit about our work. Alex?
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexandra Moody. I am from Nishistraysi Cree Nation in the Treaty 5 territory.
Thank you for that introduction. The roundtable, virtual table, I guess, is all yours. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
Perfect. Thank you. So thanks, everybody. We are the Northern Manitoba Food Culture Community Collaborative team. Through our work, we're partnering for healthier, stronger communities in Northern Manitoba through good food work and resilient communities. In our work, we're always working in a relational way that is transformative and not transactional. Next slide, please. We're a true collaborative. We're a collaborative of 13 funders, 6 Northern advisors, 6 staff, 5 partner organizations, and over 50 plus community organizations. In our work, we provide flexible funding to community-centered initiatives. We support regional gatherings and self-representation for knowledge sharing. We invest in story sharing, which you can check out a lot. We have some really great storybooks on our website. And we also support deep funder learning and unlearning. Next slide, please. So how we began and why we went with a collaborative approach. In the beginning, Julie, one of the founders of the collaborative, was connecting with a lot of different communities and traveled to a remote and northern Indigenous community in Manitoba, Manito-Sipi, which is God's Lake. And through learnings there, that helped shape our collaborative. What she found was that there was a lot of systems that were not working for communities, and there needed to be a new way of supporting communities to do what they wanted to do. And so our approach is, and also with that, It was also clear that northern Manitoba was underserved by this philanthropic sector. And so through that, we had a small, we started with a small pilot with 4 other partners and worked from a collaborative perspective, pooling resources and working in a relational way with communities. Our collaborative funding model starts with you'll see the community in the center, which means we're putting all community priorities at the center of all our decision making, and solutions to those complex problems are locally driven. Next slide. So an important part of our work is definitely being flexible with our funding and getting rid of that red tape. There's a lot of talk about like the colonial systems that they're not set up to help us, and that's us like as Indigenous people. And so being able to provide flexible funding, easier report writing, and applications to fill out, we're able to fund a lot of different projects across northern Manitoba. And as we know with Indigenous food sovereignty, that can look a lot different in many in different communities. Now I'll pass it on to Alex, who will be sharing about her home community, NCN, which is a partner, has been a partner of the collaborative for a while now, and is an example of how we've been able to support food security in the region.
Hello, everybody. Can you put it to the next slide, please? So where I'm located is in Nishistroyasik Cree Nation. We are a community of about 5,000 citizens with approximately 3,000 living within our nation and in the Treaty 5 territory. So we have been a community partner with the NMFCCC since 2008, and we had begun our partnership with the construction of a small greenhouse at the Family and Community Wellness Center when I was working as the Aboriginal Diabetes and the Canadian Prenatal Nutrition Program. You can change the next slide, please. And the purpose of the greenhouse was to have it visible for community members to want to see it and to want to create an interest to share and to learn. And we had many groups come through the greenhouse for workshops and to help start seedlings for the coming season. We've had a very successful grow year in 2009. And we were very proud of this work. We had also partnered with the NCN Country Foods Program to help deliver food grown to our community elders. And many participants took enjoyment to our work, and we only look forward in continuing. Next slide, please. We had also raised 25 meat chickens, 5 hens, and 1 rooster. We were grateful to receive eggs every day, and we shared with participants that would come and show interest in wanting to raise their own chickens and what it required to get started. We also have 2 community beekeepers, one of which is myself with my partner and a very respectable elder in the community who I admire very much. We have harvested about 100 pounds of honey between our 2 hives. Where we have distributed to community members that were interested in becoming their own beekeepers. And also the NCN Country Foods Program had received a much needed funding to purchase winter gear and a variety of other equipment to be able to work more effectively and safely from the elements. They have been much appreciative with the partnering with NMFCCC and has greatly impacted their work to help our community get access to fresh food, harvest wild game, and harvest traditional medicines within our territory. And NMFCC has always been inspiring to all community partners and always thrive for the positivity and joining communities together. And we learn from each other in the knowledge of on the encouragement of food sovereignty. Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot the next slide. Oh, the last slide, sorry. But yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to say thanks to Nicole and Alex, and just say that our group in Manitoba has always felt quite connected to the communities in the territories. The reality of the Northern Boreal Provincial is much more similar to what communities in the territories are doing, and we would love to just keep up the conversation and build connections between communities in our region and the regions of the folks who are participating in this virtual event, because we find communities learn so much from each other. So thank you for having us.
Excellent. Thank you so much there, Alexandra, Nicole, and Julie. Nice to hear the Cree accent there. You know, we don't hear that too often in Denonlands up here. So that's really nice. And then I don't know how often you guys get to say that you're kind of south of us, because you guys are usually like, hey, we're Northerners, but so we're really happy to have you a part of this, and so good to hear all the good work that you guys have been doing, and definitely a model for something that definitely works in Northern Manitoba in the boreal forest. So I think it's something that we can definitely take a hard look at here in the north. So I'm so happy to have you guys on board and sharing your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
All right. And next up, we have France Benoit and Tracy Williams. They'll walk us through the Yellowknife Food Charter and how it supports those working towards a just and sustainable food system. France is a well-known and respected local farmer and founder of the Yellowknife Farmers Market. Tracy Williams is an avid gardener, advocate, and currently works with the Nature United in the NWT. We'll get to France in a little bit. Oh, we'll get to Tracy in a little bit, but we'll start off here with
France.
All right,
very little bit, right, Denise?
Very little bit. I'll start by telling you about the Yellowknife Food Charter, and then Tracy will end our presentation. The Yellowknife Food Charter started when a bunch of people got together and decided to build a vision of what our food security would look like in Yellowknife. We were a loosely formed coalition of doctors, nutritionists, government people, Indigenous government, city councillors, working under the umbrella of the farmers market. We had food activists, and very important, we had consumers, people, because we all need to eat. So we met over many months, informally and also more formally, and we developed what we call the Yellowknife Food Charter. So you're going to ask me now, what is a food charter? So a food charter is a vision document which has a very clear set of principles that support the vision of what we would like our food system to be in Yellowknife. This charter would guide the work of all levels of government, businesses, NGOs, individuals, communities, families, etc. So ultimately, a food charter is a path towards our wellness, towards community wellness. I now would like to take a few seconds and read to you the vision that we developed together. So here's what we wanted the Yellowknife Food Charter to be. A just and sustainable food system is rooted in a healthy community where everyone has access to adequate and affordable nutritious food. More food is grown and harvested locally, and food production policies and infrastructures are in place to support an economically viable, diverse, and ecologically sustainable local food system. We had a number of principles that came along with that vision, and I just would like to read just what I felt were the most important ones. One of the principles is everyone is food secure. Indigenous and traditional practices are respected. The human right to safe and secure access to adequate food. Everyone has access to knowledge. Healthy relationships exist among all people in the food system. Food producers and harvesters generate value for their work and using ecologically sustainable practices. So once the Yellowknife Food Charter was drafted, we then invited the community literally to Northern United Place one evening, and we did the launch of the Yellowknife Food Charter. And we asked people to quite literally sign on to the charter. You've seen a picture of the big poster of the charter, and over 150 people and organizations came and wrote their name down onto the charter. So following that success, we felt we had a leg to stand on, and we approached the city of Yellowknife and we said, we now would like you to officially endorse the Yellowknife Food Charter. It took many months and presentations to City Council, but eventually they did endorse the Yellowknife Food Charter. We then moved our efforts and tried to lobby the city to develop their own local food and agriculture strategy. So again, it took many months and many presentations to City Council, but they did, and about 2 years ago, and they are now just hired consultant to begin to implement this strategy. And on to Tracy now.
Good. All right, Tracy.
So, yeah, thank you. So, so we thought maybe quickly, after France gave you an idea of what the charter actually embodies, that we could talk about a little bit what we learned through the process and reflection on that process and the work that was achieved during that time. So quickly, not much time to go over the lessons learned, but it's a Food Charter Connect is a reference document for local decision makers, like the chief and council and health and wellness practitioners and educators and on the land coordinators, and those who have participated to create the vision. We learned that a charter will speak to the vision of wellness that the community has defined for itself, by itself, and with itself for that community. And it provides a platform for folks to connect about their projects across a community and have conversations like we've been having for the last 2 days about what's important to them, what their values are, what is priority right now, and what maybe is not priority anymore, because things change. So it can lead to collective action on that priority setting for short or medium or long-term goals. It exposed us to different concepts. This was a new thing for all of us. We'd not really heard of a food charter before we started to investigate it as a way to bring people together. But we had heard about it. And in the process of learning more about the 35 food charters or so that we had investigated, we learned about food policy councils, and we learned about regional food charters. Really quickly, we learned that regional food charters can communicate a larger region's declaration of intent around their food system. What do they want from it? How do they want it to look? And again, highlighting this kind of collective vision to lead to collaboration around identifying strategies that can work for everyone to address finer grain issues that may be very specific to a particular community, but may be able to meet the objectives of a wide variety of people. And those could be categorized as local food production or harvesting practices or cultural foodways or food aggregation or cultural continuity or ecological and human health, which is so important to us Northerners here. We care about our connection to land. It's one of the most finest tenets that we all share. So quickly, food policy councils, we learned that they can act as a gathering place for policy intervention or incursion, because policy can sometimes, do too much. Sometimes we need policy where there is none, but sometimes it can create the red tape that we all don't necessarily appreciate. You can discuss food and the regulation of it. You can create opportunities for collaboration, again, between these actors or sectors or agencies. You can analyze and shape policy and create existing programs or support existing programs that people all like, or raise the need for new programs through advocacy, fundraising, et cetera. People can work with planning departments on land use planning. They can work with others doing zoning and bylaws, and just wherever it makes sense to uplift that charter. Last thoughts. Bringing a group of diverse people together can be very difficult work. It can be difficult for all the reasons we've been talking about. We have our organizational silos. We can work in competition with one another. We can, find that to be tough. But the anti-poverty team has done it in the last 2 days, and so kudos to them. But we all need food, and it cross-cuts almost every single aspect of our lives. And so if we can find vehicles that build synergy, this is definitely one to consider. So if anybody wants to hear about it more, I'll put my email and phone number in the chat, and I encourage you to call me directly. And I'd love to talk to your community about it and our experience in Yellowknife. Thanks.
Nice to hear from you and see you there virtually, Tracy. Thanks for the presentation, as well as Franz as well too, with the Yellowknife Food Charter, an example of, I guess, an initiative from a community level. We also heard from Northern Manitoba, I guess, from a regional level, and the collaborative approach when it comes to healthy and sustainable food systems there. We've also heard from Mona for the territory-wide collaboration in Nunavut when it comes to food systems there as well too.